Good morning, I'm Janice Smith-Ramseier, and I've been in this area since 1950 when my folks bought a ranch just down the canyon from here. The Hesperia Hall was a gathering point for the community. I had my first dance at Hesperia Hall in about 1952, my bridal shower in 1957, and my baby shower in 1959. My son's wedding reception. I was very involved with the hall in many capacities, but as president for several years off and on, it was something that was a passion of mine to help out in any way that I could. Many people may not know, but across the road from the existing hall was the Hesperia School. And that's actually where the Shiloh Baptist Church group began in the Hesperia School. So as their group grew, they had the privilege of an acre plus donated to the church from the John Hartman family. And they decided it was time to build a church of their own. So the church members actually in 1897 began building the Hesperia Hall, which was Shiloh Baptist Church. The very first meeting of the congregation was in 1898. The attendance gradually diminished until the church decided to disband in 1918. Follows a very colorful history of the hall. The hall was used by various community groups. The Hesperia Farm Bureau proposed to purchase it. The selling price from the Baptist Church was $300, but they did talk them down to $150. There was a lot of community support for purchasing the hall, so various fundraisers were held, dances, local musicians, Elma Dayton, her dad, Buckskin Bill Adam, and Corn-Fed Boys, they all put on these dances, and that was the main source of revenue. And finally, they were able to provide the purchase price. The church deeded the property over to the Hesperia Farm Center. Everything was functioning and the building was being used. Then, one gathering of the home department in 1933, the ladies were around talking about whatever project they had as homemakers. All of a sudden, they were invaded by 4 different people, descendants of the Hartman family, who claimed once the church no longer used the property, it went back to them. The ladies of the home department were dumbfounded and they didn't know what to do. The papers looked legal, so they vacated the building, and the hall was left in control of these Hartman heirs, who actually set up housekeeping, were cooking and living at the Hesperia Hall at that time. So there was legal action taken. John Elton Walker of Salinas was the defender of the Hesperia Farm Center. It took several years, and eventually through much litigation, it was awarded back to the Hesperia Farm Center. Then it was taken over by the Monterey County Farm Bureau Federation and served as a center for this group, meeting until the 1980s as the Monterey County Farm Bureau, Hesperia Farm Bureau. The Hesperia Hall has been instrumental in many gatherings of community interest. For instance, the phone service for the area, and also rural electrification when that became a thing of real interest in the 1950s, and actually gathered the groups together to proceed with getting the lines, which resulted in most everybody having electricity in this area. As our organization grew, there became more people became interested in supporting the hall, and it was an issue to have the hall be a nonprofit, to where people could claim a tax deduction for money that they wanted to help. Hesperia Farm Center was one of several farm centers under the auspices of Monterey County Farm Bureau. Probably beginning in the early 80s, the Monterey County Farm Bureau, because of liability, wanted to divest itself of the local farm centers. So their proposal was if you could form a nonprofit in your little community, we could transfer title from the Monterey County Farm Bureau to your group. And that actually happened in the late 1980s. Thanks to the kindness of Jay and Ann Brown, they funded a lot of the attorney fees and paperwork process, which was locally carried on by Bill and Becky Dayton, who were president and vice president at that time. And they all worked together very hard to get this to happen, which is how we got the nonprofit status of 501c3 in California. So it served us well with our scholarship programs and those things that result from donations that are tax deductible. We had an annual fundraising dinner. Everybody participated and it was a big deal. We always had an auction, and I can remember Joe Rocha pulling a rooster out of the cage at the auction up on the stage, holding that rooster up and auctioning it off. But we went from the ham dinners then, gradually went to spaghetti dinners. Sit down, very formal spaghetti dinner. And that's transitioned into the chicken barbecues. The first few chicken barbecues were held by using portable pits. That didn't turn out too well, so the farm center decided to build a big barbecue pit in the back. Many of our neighbors worked on it. The Daytons, the Morans, Kinsellas, many people lent their hand. Actually, Bill Dayton was the designer, assisted by several other men, my husband Jack Smith too. We worked by floodlight, trying to get the bricks in place and everything built so that it could be used for the chicken barbecue that very first year. There's pictures of the spotlight over top of our construction. As a result, some of the cracks that you see today might have been because it wasn't cured quite long enough, but in the anxiousness to use it, we fired it up. As soon as it was done, we had a beautiful iron plate on there, and I thought, that is perfect for a pancake breakfast. So that's what we did to initiate it. We had a pancake breakfast. The cover was added later because it was very, very hot out there without the shade, so that came a couple of years later. The hall continues to be a very active place today, thanks to the dedication of some people like Ed Bunce, for example, and Joe Gary was very instrumental in keeping the hall alive. Ernest and Edna Wefferling, of course Bill and Becky Dayton, even the Pattersons would help with our early chicken barbecues. To summarize the events and the people, since the Richardsons came, there have been the Oktoberfest, there have been Christmas parties, New Year's Eve dances, Thanksgiving potlucks. We award scholarships too, and that's a very big source of pride for our community. And we're just thankful for all the people that have donated through the years. It's just a wonderful organization. You know, we thank all of those who have helped preserve the hall, and we hope it continues for another 100 years.